Folks all around the globe are not going back to school. It's that time of year when we really start getting back into the homeschooling groove. So today I'm sharing 5 of my best back to homeschool tips. Hi, I'm Paige Hudson of the Tips for Teaching Science at Home show, and together we're going to break down the lofty concepts in science into building blocks we can use to teach this subject in our home. Let's get started. In our last episode, we talked about how you can make science your kid's favorite subject. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 of my best back to homeschool tips, things that have helped me start our year off right, things that I've learned over our 11 years of homeschooling that make our year a bit easier. So let's dig right on in. Tip number 1, plan out your first month before you begin. Every year I take a day during the summer to sit down with the resources that I've chosen for our homeschool, to get familiar with them, to determine what I need to cover in that first month, and to kind of break down and get a feel for and an idea of how it will look over the year. Of course, things change in your homeschool, and that's fine. You make the adjustments you need to fit your students. But I like to kind of get a plan in place of what the first month will look like. I review the introductions and the experiments so that I have a good idea going into our first month, what material we're going to cover, and how that will look for our students, and then I can adjust accordingly as we go through. Having that first month planned out makes the start to our homeschooling year a whole lot easier. Tip number 2, gather your supplies ahead of time. Usually I place the supplies we'll need on our shopping list for the week, but having that stuff ahead of time for the whole month makes it so much easier. I place all the supplies and materials we'll need for that first month into a bin, and then put it with all my homeschooling books. That way we're all set up and ready to go for that first month. Having those supplies and materials ready to go makes the start of our homeschool year so much easier. Tip number 3, order the library books you'll need for the first few weeks. When I'm looking over the topics that we're going to cover, I'll go ahead and pull up our library's website and search for those topics to find any books that the library might have that pertain to those topics. Then I'll choose the ones that look the best to me and reserve the appropriate library books. This makes it a whole lot easier so that I can just go in and pick up my stack for that first week. Ordering the library books ahead of time makes the start to our homeschool year so much easier. Tip number 4, print out your notebooks. I don't know about you, but early on in our homeschool years, I used to find all these really cool printables and save them in folders or bookmark them in my browser. And then I'd totally forget about them. And we'd be in the middle of a lesson, I'd be like, oh, I found that really cool printable. Hold on. And I'd have to go over to my computer and print it out. Nowadays, I print out any ebooks, any maps or notebooks that we have planned for the year and get them ready for the first few weeks. That way, I'm not stuck in the middle of a lesson trying to print out a sheet. So printing out those notebooks ahead of time really makes the start to our homeschool year so much better. Tip number 5, determine regular planning times. I like to plan on Sunday afternoon. Things seem to be quieter in the house, and it just makes it easier for me to focus my time and determine what we're going to do each week. But life changes, and I haven't always planned on Sunday. Some years I've planned a week at a time. Some years I've planned a month at a time. Some years I've planned an entire quarter at a time. And because that's just the way it needed to be for that year. So at the start of each year, I sit down and figure out what's going to be the best way for me to plan week by week or month by month. And determining regular planning times at the beginning of the year helps us start our homeschool year off right. So as you head back to homeschool this year, plan out your first month. Gather the supplies ahead of time. Order those library books. Print out any notebooks. And determine your regular planning times for the rest of the year. These 5 tips will help start your homeschool year off right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to episode 11 of the Tips for Teaching Science at Home show. You can see today's show notes by clicking on the link below or by heading over to elementalscience.com, finding tips, and clicking on videos. If you're listening in iTunes or Stitcher, scroll on down and leave us a review. These reviews help others find our tips for teaching science. If you're listening in YouTube or Facebook, scroll down and leave a comment. Let us know your best back to homeschool teaching tip.